Evening, lovely Instagrammers. I am going live with Dr. Caroline Boyd, and she is going to talk to me about her wonderful new book, which is called The Mindful New Mum, all about the transition to having a new baby in the sort of first year of life. And I hope she is going to join me. My thing won't go down. There it is. So if you have questions, do please ask and I'll read them. It's such an important transition for your first baby, but also if you have more than one baby, into having 2 or even 3 babies. So hello everybody that I recognise, hands on Hexam and Rebecca and then Helen Marie and Nadine and Glishe and Angela. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me. Maybe that's her. No. Anita is there, so that's good. I'm going to try again. How are all of you? How is your first, well, not your first, your Monday been today? Invite, there she is. Hopefully she'll come. This is the book, Mindful New Mum. How was your experience, those of you that are mothers, how was your experience of becoming a mum? Was it difficult, traumatic? Did you get postnatal depression? Did you get support? Hello, Armstrong Events. I can see Dr. Boyd has joined. There we go. Maybe she's going to join me now. I think she is. Hope she is. Should be here. Keep saying accept. These things are sent to try us. You were too young to recognise issues. Caroline, there we go. I've invited you. You've asked to join and I've accepted you and you still aren't there. Blimey, O'Reilly, so annoying. Let me try again. There you are.
Hi.
They never make it easy, right?
No, I'm not good with the technical side of things. So
you're pretty good on your Insta. Lots of good things.
With support.
Good. Well, lovely to meet you because we haven't met, although we've kind of conversed over Insta in different ways. Do you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell my followers and your followers what led you to write your lovely new book, Mindful New Mum, which I've really enjoyed, and sort of say what, who you are and what led you to write the book?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Sorry, my chair is a bit squeaky, so hopefully it won't be too loud. I am a perinatal clinical psychologist and I work with mums and dads around all aspects of the transition to parenthood and beyond. And well, in answer to your question about what led me to write the book, I was asked to write it just before Christmas last year, not the one just gone, obviously. And I really thought, okay, how can I make it as helpful as possible to a new mum? And, understanding from my own experience, I've got 2 children. They're primary school age now, but you're really tired and you don't have loads of time and it's a massive adjustment. So I wanted to write something that felt reassuring and compassionate and accessible and practical. So I thought, well, I'll draw on the clinical work that I do with my clients and try and put together in the form of a book a compassionate toolkit to help mums look after their mind and their body. And I guess
it's so interconnected, aren't they? I mean, they're exhausted.
Yeah.
They're sleep deprived, and then they have, as you say in the book, the sort of pressure of the perfection super mum, And all the other pressures of comparing themselves to the mums that they know, whether that's family members or friends or their um, uh, baby group, you know, all of those things kind of crowd in, and you don't really have the capacity to know whether your thinking is clear thinking or not, do you?
No, and not at all. And I think that the impact of sleep deprivation is sometimes really minimized, and it's sort of, you know, it's
It's sort of
almost seen
crazy
as,
making, isn't it? Sleep deprivation. You sort
yeah,
of slightly crazed. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's used as a form of torture, you know,
Yeah.
and it can feel pretty torturous, but you know, it has a huge impact on us physically and emotionally, and cognitively as well. Um, so so yeah, I wanted to put something together and write something that could bring everything together in a really accessible way. And I'm really delighted that it's illustrated, because
Yeah,
actually,
lovely.
you
Do
know,
you want
that
to
helps.
show? Do you want to show one of your favourite illustrations?
Do
Or I
I?
can show. Yeah, have you got your book there? No,
No, I have. Shall
you
I?
have.
Yeah.
There's one of a pelvic floor awareness.
Oh yeah. No, I. It was lovely seeing the book come together and seeing the, you know, it come back on the spread where the art team had just done these wonderful illustrations. Um, there's lots of nice pictures of food. So there's I guess it's about trying to give mums a psychological understanding of what's going on in their brain and their body and in their identity, and also in the relationships around them. And then I've also included nutrition tips and natural remedies that may have in years gone by been passed down by grandmothers, but because mums are so, you know, we parent in such isolation, and it's not meant to be like that. You know, we
No.
haven't evolved to do that. It's a very abnormal context. So I think also trying to help mums feel connected to those around them, to know when they might need extra support, to feel connected to their baby, and then most of all connected to themselves, because that's a relationship that we really need to pay attention to.
Because I mean, one of the things I was thinking as I was reading it, and I agree with everything that you say about being self-compassionate and mindful and doing things that lower your kind of system that gets amped up. And also, I was thinking of the pressure that when you're sleep deprived, the thing you go for is Coke or coffee or a biscuit. And how do you have suggestions of how to overcome the barrier, you know, the choice between a chocolate biscuit and a cup of coffee and 5 minutes of a meditation or a visualization or mindfulness is quite a hard one when you're kind of literally, and of course you're going to feel much worse. Everyone logically knows you feel much worse if you go for the coffee chocolate route, but somehow persuading yourself to not go for the treat, but to go for the thing that actually stops your mind ruminating and going slightly bonkers. Do you have ways to stop our monkey mind driving us rather than our thoughtful mind or our sensitive, compassionate mind?
It's a really good question. I feel like I just want to say before I answer that question
Okay.
how happy I am that, you know, I'm talking to you now, because I'm such a big fan of yours,
Oh,
and
thank you.
yeah, and I really enjoy your voice on Instagram, and your books as well. So thank you for having me.
Oh, that's
Um,
very sweet of you. Thank you. I'm touched.
but we got straight into it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I think
Twinning
that
tea, I feel seen. Coffee and chocolate are my main food groups.
I think the reality is that, you know, when you're tired, of course you're going to reach for the coffee and the chocolate biscuit, and you know that is going to happen. But I guess it's just about trying to weave in some times where you can bring in a bit of balance, and I think it's also about empowering mums with knowledge about, you know, their internal emotional world, which is so rich, um, and that's about your feelings, your emotions, and it's also about the sensations in your body, and they're so, as you say, they're so interconnected. And I think a lot of women, certainly in my experience working with mums, and to an extent myself, we're not taught how to pay attention to our emotions and to know what they mean, and to sort of understand when we might have reached our limit or when we're reaching our limit, you know, to keep an eye on our capacity. And I think that, you know, if we think about lots of cultural messages, which I talk a lot about, you know, about women, well, as little girls being taught to be good, and that certain emotions may
Are
be,
bad.
what's that?
Are bad. Certain emotions are bad. Being
Bad.
angry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So we might learn to suppress them, or they're modeled to us in a certain way where they, or rather, if we do show them, they're then shamed. And so we have these learned ways of responding to these, you know, bad emotions. And I think if you then think of, you know, you have this baby, it's a monumental physical and emotional event. And there's so much going on. It's such a time of change and transformation. But I think if you don't really understand what's going on physiologically and emotionally, then it can feel really destabilizing. And also, if you think about the external pressures on women to parent perfectly, you know, which is so prominent, and then thinking about parenting in isolation, then it just puts enormous expectation on women to be able to soothe their baby. And, you know, I think the pressures of perfection extend to babies too, so they must be perfect babies and be good.
what's wrong with my baby that doesn't sleep like my neighbour's baby that, you know, wakes up at 4, whatever I do? Or... And the thing I really liked was when you talked about matrescence as a version of adolescence, you know, that our hormones are going crazy in our bodies. We're in a kind of physical, you know, and psychological transition in our lives that has been painted as this kind of perfect, beautiful, lovely, special thing with pictures of Madonna mothers, you know. And the reality of it is that you look at your body and you don't recognize it anymore. You've got sore boobs, you've got a sore bum, you've got a crying baby. If you've got a present dad, you're trying to figure out how to be in a relationship, how to be parents. And if you have more than one child, how you manage both your children. That it's such an enormous time of transition. And, you know, the thing that I talked about, and I did a couple of case studies on it in my last book, was that our internal processes of change, the agent of change is pain, so that it's always uncomfortable, but also they take much longer than the external event. So I think when you talk about perfectionism and supermum and all these kind of fairy tale images, there's also this sort of thing that, right, you know, the minute my baby is born, I'm a mum. And actually the process of being a mum is lifelong. I mean, I still look at my kids now who are 40 and I think, God, I can't actually believe I'm their mother. You know, so I'm a bit of a slow learner. But it's such an enormous thing. And I'm talking more than you. I've got one more thing I want to say, which is you included at the beginning talking about dads. And I really wanted to talk to you about sharing the parent load and including dads. And, you know, all the research from the pandemic has shown that still women do far more of the emotional labour, the childcare. And I had a wonderful quote from someone who, you know, really thought they were in an equal relationship and had signed up for an equal parent relationship. And she shouted, I did not sign up for this. This was not the deal. So if you can remember anything I've said, which I'm not sure I can, what's your response?
No, I think that, well, firstly, I think as parents, you know, it's the challenges change as we grow and get older, and our kids get older, don't they?
Yeah.
So the challenges become different, but that process of growth and transformation is sort of, it's ongoing. And I think that relationship that we create with ourselves is also ongoing. You know, it takes practice and continual practice. It's not like, you know, I'm a therapist as you are, and I don't expect my clients to do a piece of work in therapy and then
And job
you know,
done.
ride off into the sunset all neat and tidy and wrapped up, because it doesn't work like that. But it is about becoming more aware of what is going on internally, so with your emotions and in your body, and learning to, I guess, to pay attention to that, and also to respond with compassion. And that can feel really hard, I think, with a lot of these messages around perfectionism. And I think that as mothers, our inner critic can be so loud. And I
But
think
you gave lovely examples of how to quieten your inner critic, and 5 minutes of kind of self-compassion or yoga, that you don't have to do like 40 minutes of finding your inner chi, that you can do small little moments that can help. Can I just interrupt to say that Kapia said it's really hard to remember to look after yourself when you're so focused on wanting to give everything to your little one. As you're saying wisely, but you can't keep pouring from an empty cup. That's lovely.
and it's so true. And I guess I use the which is links to pouring from an empty cup and thinking, what is our capacity? But it all, it's a similar analogy is the oxygen mask analogy, and thinking about, if you're on an aeroplane, the parent is always must put on their oxygen mask first before they can apply it to their baby. And I think that is so true for mums, for parents, where you do need to learn to soothe yourself before you can soothe your baby.
Your
And then I
baby.
think once you get to know how to do that and you practice that, then of course you can do mutual soothing with your baby. And sometimes it demands that you have to do it in tandem. But I think there is so much that might be triggered, or might be that might be triggered in you. And it's testing. Parenting is wonderful, and also it's testing. And I think matrescence, just to pick up on your point about that, really is such a wonderfully normalizing way of offering a language around this transition, where rather than traditional models, which I think are so focused on child outcomes and the mother gets really lost, I think matrescence holds the mother and holds the mother's complexity, and holds the sort of the both and of mothering, where, yes, it is wonderful. For me, it was the making of me. And there are moments of magic and wonder, there really are. And also it can be, it can bring us to very dark places. And, you said before about pain being the agent of change. And I think that there is suffering, there can be suffering there, when perhaps we get in touch with ourselves in a way that we never imagined. And perhaps, it kind of requires this reevaluation, if you like, of our old habits and patterns that, no longer serve us. So it's a whole reassessment of, how do I want to be in the world? How do I want to mother? What kind of woman do I want to be? And so I think matrescence does hold the complexity, and kind of encourages mums to critically think about their needs, which is important.
Yeah. And at the far end of, holding both those moments of joy and kind of wonder, and at the far end, intrusive thoughts, murderous thoughts, rage, is part of what you're saying, that once you have enough kind of insight to kind of recognize your own feelings, then you can recognize that you're feeling this much rage, and that doesn't make you a bad person, but also mechanisms to soothe yourself. Or do you want to talk a bit about intrusive thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that. It's something that I cover in the book, because I've had so many mums say to me, I had no idea that I might experience these. And
it can lead to postnatal depression, can't it, do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's the labeling of the thoughts. So I guess just thinking, so for anyone who's listening who's not sure, what are intrusive thoughts, I guess we're talking about those unwanted, they can be thoughts or vivid visions, or unwanted impulses or urges to hurt your baby or of harm coming to your baby. So one category is known as thoughts of accidental harm, and that might be having a image of your baby suffocating or choking or rolling off the mat. And they've been found to be pretty much universal. So pretty much every single mother will have those at some
or father, yeah.
Or dads get them too, but to a slightly lesser degree. And we need more research. And then thoughts of intentional harm might be an unwanted impulse to throw or to shake your baby, even though you never would. And they've been found to be experienced by 1 in 2 women.
Wow,
which is
50%. That's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's likely an underestimation given the worries that women and men have in sharing these kinds of thoughts. And that's what I found in my research. So none of the women that I interviewed shared them with a healthcare professional. So there are
really normalizing it, aren't you? Saying that, maybe more than half parents have these thoughts, probably more women than men.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think that actually it's quite a simple intervention that is needed in terms of normalizing that woman's experience, helping her make sense of it, helping her to process those thoughts and think of the context where they might be coming from. We know that they're more likely to occur in times of stress or when a woman feels unsupported. But I think it's the labeling of those thoughts. So the women that I interviewed, when they interpreted them to mean that they were a bad mum, or that they were
so they conflated the feeling with a fact about themselves as a mother.
Absolutely. Then of course they are experienced as more upsetting, and understandably the mum wants to avoid those thoughts, or she might resist them or push them away because they feel so scary, and they come with very intense emotions like shame or guilt, and horror. And so, if you imagine a mum who's avoiding those thoughts or resisting them and sees them as a sign that there's something wrong with her, or that she's bad or abnormal, then unfortunately what we know is these thoughts grow in power and intensity, and they come back. So what the making sense of the thoughts does and helps to do is to help a woman understand, okay, well, these thoughts are really common. What's going on for me at the moment? So thinking about the context. Am I stressed? Am I tired? What
am I worried about? Money? Have I just had COVID? What is my husband away on work, or have we had a huge fight, or my mum is being a pain in the bum, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. What is increasing my vulnerability at the moment, and then understanding, that so I guess being supported to make sense of these thoughts, and in the context of her own experience, and then if she's talking with someone, be it a therapist or her GP or a loved one, a friend that she trusts, then you can, that she can feel validated, and you can come up with a plan. Okay, how can we get you that extra support? Because sometimes these thoughts are a sign that a mother does need extra support, and they're they're a bit of a
wake-up call in some ways.
Yeah.
So to go back to dads, and I know there's some dads listening because you've told me, and it's nice to know that there are dads listening. Your book is Mindful New Mum, but in my experience, dads are much more involved now than they were, when I was bringing up my children. And there is much more of a partnership and shared duties, although, as the research shows, not equal. Mm-hmm. So I work with a dad who very much got a version of postnatal depression. He felt he'd lost his wife. There were masses of financial worries for them both. He desperately wanted this baby. But they had conflict about all sorts of different things, about vaccination, and being a parent brings out a version of yourself in the partnership that you didn't know existed before the baby was born. Mm-hmm. So that is tough, and I don't know what thoughts you have about that.
I think it's worth acknowledging that having a baby can place strain on the couple relationship. And again, you know, there's quite a few new parents that say, I wish someone had told me that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so they feel like it's not just me. So I think that is something that's worth acknowledging. And I think so in my book I talk about the importance of sharing the parenting load, which I think, you know, it's often referred to as the mother load, which just shows the extent of expectations that the mother takes this on. And, you know, when we're talking about the mental load and the domestic load, and I think the stats are shocking. There's a recent study that showed that fewer than 7% of couples of heterosexual couples share the load, which is, you know,
Seriously,
yeah,
less than 7%.
yeah.
You're joking. God, I thought it would be much more than that. Nice. It hasn't. I thought it was much more than that.
So it's really, it's something that needs attention. And I think it's something that the way that our society is set up and the structures that we have, and the pandemic really shone a light on this, are
Yeah.
not supportive of mothers um, and parents generally. So, but we can also think about gender inequality, and that actually there's a lot more work to be done to support mothers. You know, we can think about the cost of childcare. We can think about the lack of flexibility when mums do want to go back to work, if they do work. You know, and there's a lot of unseen work. So if you're a stay-at-home mum or you're a working mum, there's a lot of work that you do that I think, you know, so let's just name some of these things. So, you know, it could be ordering the nappies, making sure things don't run out in your household. It could be finding the right nursery when you're ready to do that. It could be making sure that, you know, you've done your grocery order. It could be booking holidays. There's just so much life, Min, that comes with being a parent. I think it sort of increases exponentially with each child, and this really impacts a mum and a dad's headspace. You know, it really does. And so it's those invisible, hard to measure tasks that take up that thinking time. You know, have I done this? Oh, I must
And
sort
fill up
this.
every kind of corner of your head. So, I mean, there are tons of things, but if there was one big picture government policy that you would like to see, which is very unlikely to happen, but in a dream world, what would you like it to be?
Oh God, that's $1 million question.
Better childcare? More money for childcare?
I think more affordable childcare. I think the acknowledgement, you know, actual validation, sort of, yeah, naming what parents do and validating parents in what they are doing, which was so like,
and the importance, and the, I mean, crucial importance
and the
for the
importance
entire country.
Yeah, and thinking about, you know, if we're thinking about raising the next generation, the value of the work that a mother and a dad does, and then perhaps affordable childcare along with that. So that's a few things that I've named, but I think there's a lot about gendered expectations that we internalize. So
the patriarchy thing that's still, I'm not thing, that we're still holding on to patriarchal views that we've internalized systemically for generations, I mean, for centuries. And it still has not changed, really.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done. And I think you hear dads, you know, I think dads need support in so many ways, and they can feel very sidelined, and they are very sidelined often. You know, they're not included, say, in sort of in efforts to engage in therapeutic services or maternity services. So I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. In the literature, they're completely airbrushed out.
They barely exist.
Yeah. So there's something about yeah, I was going to say I think you hear some dads saying, well, I'm doing a lot more than my dad did.
Yeah,
which is true. However, there's still a big gap in terms of some of those things, those unnamed invisible tasks that a woman or, you know, the primary carer might be doing, and just a lot of taken for granted assumptions around those things. So I think, so in my book I talk about co-creating a system together and bringing a consciousness to the reality of domestic life. So and so it kind of starts with, and Eve Rodsky's book Fair Play talks about this too, but this is about, you know, naming, talking you know, with your partner, which obviously involves communication, and I have exercises around that where you can talk with each other safely, and that might also be about your own upbringings, which is something again that most couples
gets
won't
triggered.
discuss.
Yeah.
And then yeah, they have a baby and that will get triggered. So talking with your partner, and then perhaps before you even do that, thinking, what is it that I need? And this I guess is the part of the work, if you like, which is bringing that mindful attention, or, you know, that consciousness, whatever the language you feel most comfortable with, but paying attention to,
yeah,
you know, what is it that I need? Is it more acknowledgement that we're a team? Is it actually I need, you know, I need him or her to do bath time and I just need a break at that point in the day? And I just need 20 minutes at this point in the day. How can we build that in? Is it more acknowledgement generally for what I'm doing? So I think it's thinking about what it is that you need, and then arranging to talk with your partner. And in terms of co-creating this system, I think it's about naming all the tasks that are being done, and because often they're not named, and they are overlooked. And sometimes the you know, the partner might not even be aware of the extent of what's being done, with all those diffuse tasks, and so won't understand, you know, why there might be resentment building. So really trying to name those tasks, and then thinking about, okay, how can we assign responsibility and ownership for
them all?
That,
Caroline, we've got to come to an end, I'm afraid. I mean, the thing I got from your lovely book, I mean, there were so many things, and it's both kind of really compassionately written and beautifully presented and practical, is that, you know, when we're kind and gentle to ourselves, we model that and enable that for our babies and children, and that there are specific things that we can do to be kind to ourselves. And that, of course, we will have that, what I call shitty committee of criticism or comparing or fights or rage or moods, because all of us have weather. And it isn't about not having them. It's about, as you're saying, naming them, recognizing them, allowing them, I guess, to come through your system as emotions need to. Even that kind of murderous rage needs to come through, but not then conflating it with self-criticism of blame, like I'm a bad mother and I'm a useless mother, and then get the rage against yourself, which of course sets up such a terrible cycle, which is then often then acted out and difficult. I mean, but there are so many other things. We may have to have another conversation about, we haven't talked about guilt, working in guilt, parenting in guilt, never feeling good enough. Lovely Winnicott, good enough. Is there one thing you want everyone to hear that you'd like them to know from your book? And then we'll sign off and have our evening.
I think trying to let yourself off the hook of impossible expectations, and understanding, you know, that you're doing the very best that you can, and I guess trying to yeah, be soft with yourself and try to really, it's learning a new relationship with yourself, and it can be for many women, and just bringing a compassion rather than self-criticism, like you say, because the self-criticism and the labeling of those emotions really fuels the fire. So I think trying to bring compassion to yourself where you can, and really understanding why good enough is important, not only for yourself, for your sense of sanity and self-esteem, but also for your baby.
Yeah, that it's cyclical, these things. That's so lovely. Good luck with the book. I'm sure you're doing lots of lovely things with it, and I hope it gets out in the world. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and find the book?
Oh yes, so if you want to find me on Instagram, I am at _Dr. Boyd, BOYD, and my book is available from Waterstones, Amazon, and independent book selling sites as well. So
Brilliant.
Enjoy. Thanks
And
for
you
having me.
enjoy the book. It's your new baby, the book. Enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Lovely seeing you, Caroline.
You too.
Take care. Bye, everybody. I hope you have nice evenings. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you soon. Bye.